Right, so I'm just having issues. There we go. My name is Chad, and my panelists are my colleagues Kombi and Brian, just for the session regarding the interim submission. All right, so just a brief overview. What is the interim reconciliation SARS submission? So we all know it's from the 1st of March up to the end of August. It's basically to align ourselves with the EMP501, so we're on track with your PAYE, your SDL, your UIF, and of course the infamous ETI, as well as payments made and tax values of the employee tax certificate. So we're going to be covering the 6 months transaction period from the 1st of March to the 31st of August. So it's basically like your annual reconciliation declaration, except that the declaration and the employee tax certificates, obviously there are no employee tax certificates. So just the agenda for today, we're just going to cover the important information. Very importantly, your directive changes. We're going to go through the new validations, your IOP5 validations, how to run a test run. They're just the basics, what we do every year. The import of the test IOP5 file, how to run the live file for Sage 300 people, and the import into easy file, then of course the reconciliation report. All right, so let's go through the important information. Periodic reconciliation period. So once again, repeating myself, is from the 1st of March up to the end of August. The submissions opened on the 13th of September, and the closing date for the submissions is 31st of October. Please always remember that when we do submissions via easy file, that we have to be on the latest version of easy file. So obviously when you go log on to easy file and we prompt it to update, you always need to do so. Your Sage 300 people system, you have to be on version 21.3.1.0 or higher. The latest version at the moment is currently 21.3.1.0. We then need to create the interim reconciliation 2022 folder, save all applicable backups, reports, files, and reference for record purposes. The importance of this is, obviously we change, there might be administrators. There has to be a process where this is kept safely if you do need to actually go refer to this in a future period. All right, so just some more important information going forward. We need to make sure that we've got a detailed EMP1 reports, our recon totals reports. So this is obviously displaying the year-to-date plus amounts for all your payroll definitions. Very importantly, we do need to create a database backup. So if we're going to be going in and doing corrections, or we need to fix validations or warnings, make that backup before, so we can always refer to that backup if we ever do need to. There are nice reports that are available on employee level. So for example, if I need to refer to an individual employee's tax totals, I can go refer to a payslip reconciliation, and then I can tie back my employee's earnings or deductions and link it to a SARS source code, and also reconcile on employee level. All right, so here's all the changes. So the new directive changes on the system are as follows. So with the new version, the 21.3.1.0, this information was made available to you. You would have seen this on Sage City, because obviously you would have applied to attend the seminar on Sage City, where your directive date issued is a new field on the system itself. All right, so very importantly, The directive income source code is basically, it's a mandatory field. And then obviously now we've got a new field there called your directive amount. The directive number is still there. Obviously the directive number would be a mandatory field. So just to get into a little bit more information of this new layout and why it is such on the system is we needed to actually go align ourselves with the business requirements specs, which was available to us and which this was developed on. So your directive issue date, obviously it's got to be in the number format. You got to make sure that this is updated if your employees did receive a directive. Very importantly, your directive earning. The directive earning on the employee detail tax definition tab, you will receive a validation if the IOP5 code does not have a value on the payslip when doing the IOP5 export, or if a different IOP5 code is used on the employee's payslip. So these two codes do need to correlate. In addition to that, with the directive income will still be on the employee's payslip itself, but we also need to stipulate that directive income on your tax definition tab on the employee detail screen. So with your directive number export validations, upon the export, the income source code will validate that only the following IOP5 codes may be used. I'm not going to read through the list. Very importantly, when you update it to the 21.3.1.0, these source codes are listed on that specific release note. SARS would have provided you with what the income source code is for that tax directive. So just to ensure that when you went to go process this on the payslip, you had the correlating code on that tax definition tab of the employee's basic, on the employee detail screen on the tax definition tab. So the correlating codes, and then you got your correlating directive amounts. Right, so then the list just goes through where you can actually go get this from your release notes that are provided to you from Stage 300 people. All right, so some new IOP5 validations which have been added for the 2022 mid-year submission. So this is going to correlate with what I've just discussed prior to this, directive number validations. If an incorrect IOP5 code is linked to the directive export, you'll receive the following validation error: income source code, which will be stipulated, not allowed for directive number. So this is built in as part of the validation. If the source code selected does not have a value on the employee's payslip for the reconciliation period, you receive the validation error: IOP5 code linked to directive number, which will stipulate difference from the IOP5 code on the payslip. If the directive issue date is not completed, you will not be able to export your IOP5 file, and you will receive the following validation error: the directive issue date is a mandatory field for the directive number. So some of those fields on the tax definition tab, it won't give you a validation warning when populating those fields, but when running the validation reports, if that is missing, it will warn us. If the directive amount is not completed, you'll receive the following validation error: income amount required for directive number. So only 5 directive numbers can be submitted per IOP5 export. Prior to this, it was 3. So always remembering, if somebody does receive more than 5 directive numbers, on the employee's tax definition tab, would go create a second tax record, and then basically they'll have 2 IOP5s for the submission. So limited to the 5 directive numbers. And yes, this is only applicable for or from this tax year going forward. Something else that has been added is your email validations. So very importantly, they do need this information. So they've just gone and built this in just to make sure that email addresses are correct. So it's going to be the first and last letter of the email address, may not be a special character. Special characters may not appear consecutively. And the following characters are no longer allowed in email addresses. This is available on your latest release notes. You've got your open bracket, closed brackets, backslash, inverted commas, your pipe sign, percentage. Very importantly, if these validations are broken, the email addresses will be omitted from the IOP5 file, and you'll receive a validation warning that these fields are or they're not mandatory, but it's basically just omitting that specific email address. We just put in a note here, just as communications go out, that which was also part of the update where the Minister of Labour did increase the OID earnings threshold. So that's 506,473 per annum. And then that you'll be able to go see under your payroll definitions where it would have been updated to the new limit on the system itself. Something small that I just thought I would add into this, regarding asylum seekers and refugee permits. I went and I actually recreated this area on the system. So a lot of times people will go load an asylum seeker or a refugee permit. So this will be on the employees information tab. So they'll go to permits, they'll go populate the asylum seeker or the refugee, give all the details, the credentials, the date fields that are required, and then they will go put in a passport number. And regardless if I've gone and I've put in the passport number, you'll get this. It says either the ID number or passport number should be completed. There is a post on this on Sage City where people say, okay, I've got this passport number, but I'm still getting this error message. I went and I double checked on the BRS, and if you are an asylum seeker or a refugee permit holder, it is a requirement that you obtain a temporary ID. So that is why it's still asking you for an identity document. If you haven't got that and you really need to do your submissions, those fields can be populated at a later stage when you do get that temporary ID from the employee. So you can fully populate that on the system, and then that will actually get past that validation error. Just that you don't come across, but just food for thought, you know. So the validations that are still going to apply. Your residential address, your postal address and your work address, your contact person details, tax registration number, so obviously your PAYE number, trading name of company, physical address, tax number is still going to be a warning, payment details, contact details. So all this information is normally what's part of a standard validation report. There's a lot of documentation to guide you on this. It is part of the actual year-end guide, which, if everything is just kept up to date, obviously when loading new companies, when populating new employees, one can eliminate all these additional validations during the biannual submission preparation, or obviously the year-end submission preparation. Some changes to your ETI indicator. So the ETI period where COVID is now applied has been from the 1st of August up to November, if memory serves me correct. And also quite important, obviously there will be changes with the validations regarding the ETI. So the regulation regarding when the ETI indicator will be flagged as yes, no, or not in the file has changed. So these are quite important things just to remember. I would also go refer to the release notes if you do pick up issues regarding this. So if the employer is linked to an invalid SIC code, the ETI code will not be included in the file. So it's not included whatsoever. If the employer is linked to a valid SIC code, but the employee is linked to an invalid SIC code, then the ETI indicator code will be included in the file, but marked as an N. If the employee is linked to an invalid SIC code, but the employee has an ETI total, then you will receive a validation error and you will have to clear all the ETI values for the employee or link the employee to the correct SIC code. So obviously with this new third column that's come around for COVID, so when I refer to the third column, these are the new ETI calculations because of COVID from that period of August going into November. If an employee's ETI total was calculated in the third column according to the different calculations for ETI, now once again, one can actually go refer to the prior release notes before the current or the latest release for the SARS changes. We had an ETI release where we said, okay, we've gone and updated the system with the ETI changes. We showed you the option on how to go recalc the ETI. The ETI indicator will export as a value 3. So on the employee's tax total screen, the ETI reason will now indicate how ETI was calculated for an employee. Therefore, if the ETI reason for a qualifying employee is COVID, this means that the employee qualified for ETI in this specific period due to the ETI relief measures. If you're doing ETI take-ons, all right, so if an ETI take-on has been done to calculate the ETI values, the ETI reason must be updated by the ETI take-on batch to COVID. All right, so that's referring to the whole column 3, which are available on the prior release notes for that big change that we did release regarding the ETI. Sorry, I jumped the gun a bit. I'm just going to, before we go through the test run, because of the changes on, I'm going to refer back to the tax directives. If an employer has a lot of tax directives, just remember, if memory serves me correctly, please make yourself aware there is functionality to go update that tax definition tab on the employee detail screen. So employee detail, tax definition, if you do want to update the directive information, if memory serves me correctly, it is under your utilities field, batches, system batches, and you get a directive numbers batch. So that functionality has been made available to the user to actually go update those fields on the system. So please just, something just to scratch a note about, or just to keep in the back of your mind, we have provided you with that functionality. All right, so just going through the normal process for the year end, just creating our test run. So we'd want to go access your tax certificate export screen, go expand on exports, tax certificate export, you select your company, reconciliation and run type, and include all the applicable company rules. So if you're an ongoing user, you're familiar with the screen. If you're a new user, this is basically your tax certificate export screen. where we can go select the export type. So you might first want to go run a validation run, which is recommended, or we can do a biannual interim submission, select the relevant tax year, which company rules am I going to include. If you're doing a test run, well, usually on the live run, you'd want to print your summary reports, Recon reports, and your IOP5 reports. And then the run type, where we would want to go create a test run. And then if we pick up those validations, which I'll get to just now. So obviously selecting the test run, exporting the CSV, message will indicate whether the process is completed, and it will be saved. If there are validations, the validations will come up. So we obviously can't go save the file. We need to go sort out these validations. So there's just a typical example of what I gave you earlier on regarding standard validations of contact numbers. You'll see tax numbers is still going to be a warning. Maybe it's going to be the new tax directive validations, which one can actually go work through until one can actually go export the test run file. All right, so once we've actually gone and cleared all validations and we managed to export the test run file, and we've got our saved folder, which we're going to keep somewhere safe in case we change payroll administrators, so the company's always got access to these records going forward. We now go into easy file. We go select our option to go import or export payroll file. You select your option to go import your payroll file. Select OK. You hold thumbs. Just joking. You go browse for your file, and basically this will be validated as being imported into easy file. So if there are errors on easy file, one would go find this under your utilities function, your import payroll file log. It will let you know if there is any failed import files, and basically, or what the warnings will be when you import this file into easy file. So once we've worked through that and we've determined what the error could be, it's a little bit beyond scope to try work through what common errors there could be, or so obviously this would need to be sorted and audited and checked to see what has gone on there. So once that test file has imported successfully, maybe we just got a few warnings, and now we're ready for that live run. So we're going to follow the very same steps as we did for the test run. So we're going to go select our company, our tax year, export type will be your interim submission. And you'll see right at the bottom of your screen, at the left-hand bottom side, we're going to say run type, which is our live run. This is where we're going to go select to go print all our reports, because with the test run, it's been successful. We wouldn't really need to make changes because SARS has accepted our test file. So it's just going to change the indicator from a test to a live. And now we can actually go include reports. So you can see at the bottom there's all your reports options. So we can print your summary reports, your EMP201 reports, your Recon reports, and this can be printed from the actual tax certificate export. So basically we're going to be saving this file as a live run. This is obviously going to be saved with the reports. And then we'll go into easy file to validate the file. You should go select your import option. And usually once the test run is passed, it will say it's passed with warnings, which means you will be able to submit to SARS. All right. You will be prompted to confirm that you'd like to import the file. So obviously we would say yes. receive the message stating that the file has been successfully imported, and we select OK. So importing a live run into EasyFile, tax certificates will now be imported. Now you can go do the declaration. But any queries or any assistance regarding EasyFile would need to be contacted to SARS. So it's I'm not too sure when we just it's not passing the buck, it's just importing, and if it's a technical issue or something, this would have to be referred to SARS. But quite importantly is your EMP501 reconciliation report. So ideally, when you go to your exports, you go to your tax certificate exports, we go select the company, the tax year, and the export type. Once again, we're going to include which company rules we want to do the export for. Now we're going to be doing our comparisons for our EMP201, and we're going to go compare it to the EMP501 itself. All right, so then there could be possible reasons for not reconciling. This one would actually have to go audit, and one would have to go check. So reasons for this could be terminating an employee after printing a report, changing the taxability of an earning or a deduction line, changing employees' information such as the IOP5 start date, tax statuses, very important, adding employees after printing reports, loading and update after printing reports, changing provision for tax on annual bonus after printing reports, backdated adjustments. So a lot of that would have to be picked up via audits and to actually go reconcile back to try pick up the variances there. So with your EMP501 reconciliation report, we're going back to your tax certificate export screen. We go select your export type. We go select the company and the tax year. And then we include the company rules, the applicable company rules. And then we're going to select to print or export the EMP501 reconciliation report, which we go select export as a CSV file. So it's basically this is the format of the actual EMP501 Recon report, and this is what we're going to need to tie up to our EMP201 reports for internal reconciling, and this obviously can get exported to Excel, and then once we go export that to Excel, one can actually go use very basic formulas and just go tie up what we have paid over and what is actually reflecting on the EMP501 reconciliation, and to see if there are differences, and where the differences are to actually see where we can start reconciling and checking and auditing to try pick up time frames and what could have happened on the system itself. All right, so I've tried to keep it short and sweet, just with all the necessary information. We're going to have a Q&A now, where I'm just going to ask my colleagues if they can just assist as well. But also please note that if there's any compliance related and SARS related queries, this would need to be directed to SARS or a tax practitioner, especially as we can't advise on specific circumstances. We get a lot of questions on foreign employees. We don't know there's different laws between the different tax countries and that sort of thing. So anything that is very compliance related or regarding directive numbers and that, those queries would have to be addressed to SARS. All right, if I can just open up for any questions. I don't know if you want to pop a question in the chat, perhaps.
Chat, we have people that are asking for the recording and the slideshow. Yes, we will be providing the slideshow and the recording on Sage City, and I'll also send it to individuals that have joined the meeting.
I see there has been quite a lot of questions in the chats where my colleagues have been assisting. So I'll just give it a minute or so. And if there's nothing further, then thank you for joining us. I really appreciate your time.
All right, Chad, thank you so much for the presentation. Thank you everyone for attending. Chad, we do have a question from Barbara Stoll. If you have no employees linked to a SIC code, will that be an automatic validation error? So I've also copied a response on the email chat. Barbara, if you can see that, you'll see that I've given you a response on that. So pretty much if the employer is linked to a valid SIC code, but the employee is linked to an invalid SIC code, then the code, EII Indicator code, will be included in the file, but that will be flagged as N. And then if the employee is linked to a valid SIC code...
Sorry, and I did see in the chat, does the IOP5 validation reports include any validation checks that SARS would perform, especially in terms of the ETVs? So if you can clarify for me.
Hi, Chet, can you hear me?
I'm not sure why Chet is not able to hear us. You can hear me as well, Brian?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
All right. I didn't see anything further come through. So basically, please, just to finish this off, if you do need training, have questions, want advice, please just remember, you can always go refer to Sage University. We've got our Sage knowledge base. We've got Sage City, which is very active at the moment. And thank you very much, everybody, for your time. Thank you.